I grew up in the South Bronx, kind of New York kid, maybe a slightly tougher environment or whatever. And I know what made me resilient. I'm not as familiar with Sweden, and given what you've done, I'd love to just try to figure out why and how and kind of what makes you tick. So tell me a little bit about kind of the young Jonas and what allowed you to be kind of the dreamer that you are.
Yeah. I mean, I come from, I wouldn't compare Bronx with anything in Sweden. Bronx in the 80s and 90s were rough.
Right.
I came from what was sort of the similar in Malmö, a very working class environment, actually. I had a single mother. She got pregnant when she was in her 20s, living alone, brought up me alone, and roaming the suburbs at 5-6 years old, running around.
Wow.
And then my grandparents, who were living outside Malmö, took me and brought us to a bit more decent area. And there I sort of got going and started doing a lot of sports during my youth.
Right.
And I think I was always decent in school or good at school, and made it through school with rather good marks.
Right.
And then mostly being sport. That was my life when I was young.
And that's something I kind of knew, but it's another, again, as I was just preparing for this conversation, I realized we have much more in common than I knew, because, you know, I had a similar situation. I mean, my stepdad, who you know, has always been involved, but, you know, for a while, mom was, you know, a single mom raising us. And I think that forces you to grow up a little bit faster and maybe just handle things that other kids may not have to handle at that same time. And sports was my outlet, right? So just to do something, I mean, I loved it. Thank God I loved it, but, you know, was decent at it. So, and you did wrestling, I mean, you did quite competitively, right?
Yeah, I was in the national team for a while.
That's just, I mean, just in the national team. I mean, this is not a small thing.
No, but Sweden was quite good at the time. We were probably the best Western country in the world. But so it was interesting.
Wow.
But we had no chance against the Russians and the Bulgarians.
We all see just your most recent success at H&M, which is, you know, you had this C-suite title, right? And then that's it. But obviously over the, you know, 35 to 40 years, you've done lots of different things within that. But before that, you didn't just go straight into H&M, right?
Yeah. No, I was, during my university studies, I happened to, or during my military service, I broke my leg skiing. So I had to break up my studies to go back and do the last half year. And in combination with that, I managed to get into IBM's traineeship. But you did tests. I was not studying informatics, but you did tests, and I managed to get in. So I did that, and then instead of going into the IT business, which I sometimes regret I didn't, maybe it would have been good. I went back to school because I wanted to work in management, international management. So I studied international business, and I did that, and then I ran my own small consulting company. Yeah,
I imagine a lot of what you're doing is figuring out what's the best way to take a company and grow it.
Yeah.
And how to do that in a manageable way without growing too fast, without running out of money.
I mean, I've always been right-brained, you know, the more creative side. But being a business person and being a financial person, you're supposed to be left-brained. But I've always actually been right-brained. So my goal has always been to develop things and enjoy doing that. So I started coming in. I think I was hired because I spoke German and I was knowing IT and systems. And I always try to systemize the way you do whatever business I'm in, but it's been retail 99%. And developing the way of working, using IT not as a way to make things faster. IT is not moving faster, doing exactly the same thing as you did yesterday.
Right.
And I think that's in all different ways of working. So I was in H&M trying to develop things all the time, how we can do things smarter. than yesterday.
You're working with different countries and cultures and designing a system that just works, let's say, for Sweden or maybe other countries in Europe is entirely different. And if I understand, a lot of it is centralized.
Yeah.
So it's almost more important to sort of get it right so that it just works.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah, I think
off, or?
It's a lot of different areas. But if we start with centralization, I think a company like H&M at least, you work with a very centralized, decentralized company where you're having a lot of things doing it the central way. But when you decentralize, you have to let go. You have to let the decentralized units do their work. And then it's about getting technology to sum it up. But you skip the middle management. I mean, of course, there are middle managers, but you try to avoid having these standard ways. You do something from top down or bottom up, but it always gets stuck in the middle.
Right.
So if you can shortcut that and do things smart, you win a lot and you can grow a lot. And you can use the creativity both from different areas, different countries, different regions, and still have benefits. So you need to, as you say, construct a system, way of working, management that can do a lot of good things for a company or an organization and still use the creativity and the smartness out in the organization. And that works for every organization, I think.
Right. Would you find yourself adapting the design because you learned something, let's say, from Austria that you could use in Germany or from a different country? Would you just constantly kind of refresh the system at least so that it was always optimal, or would you try to not tinker with that too much?
No, I think it's different. In the short run, when you have a good idea, you leave it, you keep the core idea, and then you adopt the marketing and sales maybe, but not too much. The product, I think you keep. If you don't develop long-term, though, you become a Nokia, a fantastic phone that no one wants anymore, or a Kodak camera that now they want them again, but for 30 years, no one wanted them.
Right.
So you have to develop the product, but that you do centrally, and of course the way of acting locally in the market, whether it's in a country or in a globally or whatever it is. I think that's super interesting and important.
Right. So one other thing, and just help me with context. You joined H&M in '88.
Yeah.
And there were probably a few hundred stores, mostly in Europe?
Exactly. 6 countries in Northern Europe, that was it.
That's
it. We grew from that. And I was lucky we didn't have any traineeship, but I worked half a year as local controller and then half a year at the buying office. And then they, for some strange notion, put me in charge of finance and administration in Germany as 28-year-old.
Wow.
Not having a clue what I did.
So this is like the mid-90s.
Yeah,
at this point, right?
No, this is 88.
Oh, already by then.
Yeah,
okay,
89,
wow.
89 I came to Germany.
Wow.
With an extraordinary experience of 1 year in the company and studied finance at university, but never in real life.
Well, I guess the train. I mean, I don't know what that was like. That must have been quite scary.
Now, I think I've always been someone who just go with the flow, and if someone appoints you, I assume they know what they're doing. So I hope to be able to do it. And you never work alone. I think the idea is to get there and get people to work with you.
Right.
And luckily enough, I've always been able to get good people around me. So they do the heavy lifting. I think that's the core. I mean, I came there as 28-year-olds. I had manager for my departments who were much older than I was. And just I remember having a situation where we had problems. We were also in charge of the supply chain development of IT. They were sitting in our office, so sort of supported them. That was an area I knew at least. And I had an IT manager who was much older than I was in a consultancy company, of course, very experienced. And they had a big fight. And I just sat down with them and tried to get them to talk for half an hour and explaining that we had to work together and get the goal. The whole group was expecting a system that worked, etc. And then I walked out of the room and thought, shit, I screwed it up thoroughly. But both came to me afterwards and say, oh, so good, that finally said something really hard to them. And I just asked them, how do we solve this?
Right.
And they did it themselves. And after that, both of them were best of friends. Yeah,
Wow.
maybe not, but close.
Close enough.
Close.
Good enough.
Close. It
wow.
worked. So,
Wow.
so just sitting down, taking out the best of people, I think that's all.
But that's also, I think, a real skill that requires you to understand people and maybe, I don't know if it's empathizing or just seeing through the crap, if you will, to get to the heart of it and maybe say what other people won't or point something out that might be a little bit uncomfortable. And I get the sense over the kind of arc of your career that you've had to do that over and over again, right?
Of course.
So you're opening stores every week. I mean, not you, but globally. And how do you manage all that? You're closing. So, I mean, that's 10x just from I mean, at a minimum, 10x there. So I think you're bound to come across things where that ability to like read the rooms and people and understand is even internally, right?
Yeah. You get used to trying to listen. You have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you speak, at least. And you just try to read the room. And I think also, I've always been interested in management. I studied a lot about Daniel Goleman, about neurology and how the brain works, how to teach others, and how to learn yourself. And that's always been an interest. So it's always been a hobby to deal with people. And I think by doing that, you learn all these techniques a little bit, and you can develop yourself as well. And you know that the big power lies in getting people to work together.
So where do things go from there? Because I know you got like 28 other countries after Germany, and that's 10 years into it.
I mean, while working in Germany, I also commuted to Austria for 5 years, I think.
Wow.
Starting up the business there as CFO and chairman, and not chairman, CFO, and then working, sort of building the business from scratch. It was very easy delegation of authority at that time. It was our CFO had that, the group CFO had that as his project to open Austria, and we had our HR manager became country manager in Austria. So he just said to me, Jonas, now you have to open up and make sure everything works, or I cut your throat off. And our HR manager sort of nervously laughed because that was not HR stuff. And he said, what are you laughing at? I cut your throat up if it doesn't work with the sales. So now that was delegation. And now let's eat. And that was clearly, that was the first visit in Austria. But he was a very nice guy in the end. I mean, very clear, very, very direct, but a nice guy.
And was Austria the first country that you sort of open/help open?
Yeah. I mean, we had a growth in Germany that was, we had 23 stores when I came, and we went to 400 when I left, I think, roughly, or 300 maybe. But from scratch, Austria, definitely, because there was nothing when we started.